In this video we're going to cover how to make doors to go between two different rooms so you can see how to jump between rooms. We're also going to cover how to make views within the room so the camera follows the character going around. And we're also going to cover how to make a title screen with the menu system so you can pick and choose and how to get how to start the game. So to start with, we're going to make a new room. The current room that I have right now is the main room with all the objects and stuff in there. So let's close that. Let's make a new room, and we're going to go with the first thing we need to have is the character in the room so we can start controlling him once its room starts. And let's go with collision. Actually, do collision last. I'll put some tiles in here. I'll put some. Let's grab a tree, another tree, a tree. So he's outside, I guess. And we'll put some vines in there also, so we can clearly tell that he's in a different room. And now we'll go back to the invisible objects with collision, and I'll draw that on the ground. A little lower. Alright, so now we can see that he has something to walk on, and I'll put some up here so he can't fall off the screen. And alright, so now he'll start here. Alright, now we just need to put a door in the previous room. Alright, so to make a door, I'm just going to go make a new sprite, and we'll call this door. Now you can either make this an invisible sprite and just have an invisible icon that just walks across and it changes rooms, or you could actually draw the door if you want. So either option works. If you already have a drawn door in the background, then you just make an invisible object and put it out there. Or if he walks off the edge of the screen, you want that to make the next screen, just make a bunch of invisible blocks to transition. Or if you want a door, you can make a door. So I'll just, I guess, make a door. 64 by 64 probably won't be big enough. Let me resize that. Resize canvas. Let's make it 200%. Alright, let's go inside there. So let's draw with let's go with brown color. Not the most exciting door, but you get the idea. And we'll put a door hinge right here so he can open the door. Let's do an outline real quick. Alright, so now we have a door. Okay. If you wanted to make the door animated or moving or whatever, you could do that also. We need to make the door an object. So we have a door, and we'll make it visible. Alright, so now I can put the collision on the character, or we can put the collision on the door. I'm going to put the collision on the door just because I guess I can. Collision, and it takes it off the character, so there's less to worry about on the character. When the door collides with the character, or basically the character walks into the door, we're going to go to, looks like it's under main 1. And here you can pick whether you want to go to the next room, previous room, whether you want to choose a different room or restart the current room, or check if there's more or less afterwards. In this case, I'm just going to say go to the next room. And in GameMaker 8.1, you have the option of picking different transitions. In GameMaker Studio, you don't have these options. They must have moved them somewhere else. So we'll do fade out and in. So there's lots of different options. So when your character touches the door, it'll fade out and into the next room. And they'll go in the order that they've been drawn down here, or you could specifically tell it which room to go to. So that's all we pretty much need. Let's go to room, let's start out with room 1, it looks like. Let's reorganize these. Alright, so room 1 is this one. We'll put the door. It's a bit crowded. I'll put the door right here. That should work for the door. Alright. And I could put a door in the next room also if I wanted to. I could put it in room 7. But in this case, since I don't have another room after this one, it's not really going to do much besides go to the next room, which in this case is the menu screen. So, yeah, we'll leave that. So we'll press OK. All right, so when it starts, we have the room here, and we can walk around. And if we walk over here to the door, we'll see the door here. And as soon as the character collides with the door, boom, it transitions into the next room. So now we're in the next room, and the character again collides with the next door. It'll take us to the menu screen, which we haven't covered yet. Alright, so let's switch back to Game Maker. And so now that's pretty much how you transition between doors. It's pretty simple like that. And the view inside the room, we can set that. In this case, let's say the room is, we'll do 600 by 600 to match the other rooms because they're consistent. We can say enable use of view, enable use of views, visible in room starts. And here's the view in room is what is going to, the room's going to look like. So if I say I want this to be, on a Super Nintendo res would be pretty small, 224, or 256 by 224, a Super Nintendo size. My character is a lot larger than regular Super Nintendo size, so I probably want to make it a little bit bigger than that. So I'll double the size, 512 by 448. So it's a bit bigger, and it'll follow him. So you'll see the room moves around with him. We need to make sure the object following is the character, so it follows him. And port on screen means how big will it appear when the screen actually appears. You probably want to keep the same numbers, otherwise it'll squash and stretch your screen. But we'll see what happens. So that's how that works. So enable the use of views, visible in room starts, set how big you want the box right here to be. Let's turn off the grid so you can see how big the view is going to be. You want to center it, and this horizontal border and vertical border is basically centering how far does he have to get to the edge of the screen before the screen starts moving. So it's usually good to make it at least half the length of the room. So I'll make it 250 by 250 to kind of center it pretty well. Alright, and let's play and see what happens. So when he drops in the room, I go over to the door, and boom, he transitions to the next room, and you'll see that as he gets to the edge of the screen is following him. If he jumps up, the screen moves up and down with him. So the screen is following. He stays pretty centered in the middle as he's walking, no matter where he is, because we put a 250 by 250, which is kind of centering him in the screen. And that's more or less how you set views and transition with doors. The last thing to cover is the title menu. Here I have the basic menu. You could put different images back there if you wanted to. You could go and create a background. I'll say new background, edit the background. And let's change the size. Transform, resize canvas. I'll make this like 600 by turn off aspect ratio. I think 480 was what the room size was. Press OK. So that's the room size. We'll bucket fill that with let's go with a nice, let's go with that color. Okay, nice light bluish color, let's say, for the menu system. And we can put let's go drawing, draw size, dark blue, demo, demo tutorial. So there's our main page. You can put lots of drawings if you wanted to back there. Happy smiley face, yay. So you can have whatever you wanted to put there. You could have a giant, really cool, awesome, epic background. Let's reduce the, actually put that back there and drop the opacity. So it should be lighter, a little lighter. Okay, so for whatever you wanted to do, you could have this really big tree back here. You could have a nice hill. You could have, I don't know, a floating castle somewhere up here in the background. You could have a ocean back there with lots of trees surrounding in the background. You've got grass sticking up here, and the menu system would be somewhere back there. You can put clouds in the sky if you wanted to. Yay. So whatever you wanted to do, you could draw your own picture and call it whatever you wanted to call it. When you're done, you press OK. And this will be called our title screen. Alright, so we could use the title screen as a background for, or we could switch it as tiles. So the tile sheet could use the title screen. We can grab parts of that and drop that in there. But I'm not going to use tiles for that. I'm just going to drop the background in here. So I can set the background if I want to. It says no background image at the moment. I can grab title sheet, and it should fit pretty well because we measured it to be the same as the room size 600 by 480. So that's setting the foreground. We could do a foreground image. We could make the background the foreground image, but we want to make sure it's the background. You can also get this to move left and right if you wanted to make it panning in the background or clouds moving by going with tile vertical and setting, or tiles horizontal vertical and the speed, but we can cover the shifting of how things move in the background later. So that drops in the background. You have the start options or start end options right there. So we've designed an entire room. This little dot right here is the object menu controller. So this the menu controller doesn't have a icon right here because it's a sprite without an image. So if I were to move this, we can see that you can drop this anywhere you want in the room. It won't really matter. It's just that it has to be in the room to control some things. So we'll press OK on that and that one. So let's go look at the programming to get the menu system to work. But what I did here is I made a sprite, which is just the start sprite. It's just a word start. I have the word by itself, and then the other one has the shadow underneath of it. You can make it get bright or whatever. It's not going to be animated, but you could make an animated sprite if you want to also, whichever option you want to go with. But it's just going to be one set versus the other. And the same with the options. There's two sets in there. There's the one without the shadow, the one with the shadow. So I turned both of those sprites into objects. So start and options are both objects. And we have the menu controller. So under the start, on creation, when you create the start, when you drop it in the room, we want to make sure the start sprite is set to subimage 1, which means it's selected, which this is the shadow version, and a speed of 0, so it doesn't play the animation. It's just going to show the shadow version of that clip. And then, under options, we have the same thing, except it's reverse. Subimage 0, which means there's no shadow, so it's not selected. It's set to a speed of 0. This way, that doesn't play either. So both will appear on the screen. So if I switch this room up to the top, so the first room to play is the title room, and press play, you'll see that it has the background that I drew in there. It's got the name of the game, demo, tutorial, and it's got the start and options. By default, start is shadowed and options is not, because in the sprites we set it to don't show the shadow on this one, which is 0, and show the shadow, which was subimage 1. So we're picking between the two subimages. If it was animated, it would be flashing back and forth, and you could go that option, but I just went for just shadow. Alright, so now all the control methods going to be on the menu controller, which is the other option that we dropped in here. So what we want to do is, let's say you press the down button. So when you press down, you're going to cycle through the menus. So we're going to say, this is where we check our sprites. If the start object, which is right here, start, if the start's image index, which means check to see which sprite image it is it subimage 0 or subimage 1, is saying, is it subimage 1? So if the start object, which is right there, start object, has an image index of 1, which, when it starts, it's set to 1, subimage 1. So we've set it to 1. So it's saying, if it's 1 when it starts, actually it should be 1 when it starts. So saying if you press down, if the down key, and it already is set to 1, then change the start to subimage 0. So if you look at this, subimage 1 is the shadow, and subimage 0 is no shadow. So when we say change the sprite, change the start sprite, and we from 1 to 0, speed is 0, so it doesn't play the animation. We're also going to change the options from 0 to 1. So we're basically just reversing the sub-images. We're picking and choosing. So when you press down, if start is shadowed, then turn it unshadowed, which is 0, and make sure the options become shadowed, which was the 1. So it's just switching between the two. And we need the exit this event because it'll keep reading all the way through this for some reason. Because when you press, when you set it to the options, it switches. When you change the start menu to sub-image 0 and you change the options to sub-image 1, now it's reading because the options is now 1, so it just keeps reading everything. So you need to stop the event. And this is for the down event. So when you press down, it checks. So now if it's set to 1, it's just going to be copy and paste and reverse the numbers. Set it to 1 and set this to 0. And if you had another option, you would just take all this and copy and paste, copy, paste, and put that back there. So if you had a third one, you would just say whatever this is, and again, start.imageindex, options.imageindex is saying start and options. So the options, right, the word here, options dot, is the options name of your object. So this options name can be completely different. You can make it, let's call this continue. So if you wanted to make this third option continue, we'll go continues, image index is 1. So if the start image is 1, if the options is 1, and if the continue is 1. So if this has a shadow, this has a shadow, or that has a shadow, it's going to pick which one is active. But I don't have a continue for the continue method. If I wanted to, I could make one real quick. Let's go here. We'll call this continue. We'll edit the sprite, make a new one, 128 by 32, and go to text with red and type in, let's make all caps, C-O-N-T-I-N-U-E, continue. Alright, so we have the word continue, make sure the opacity is 100%, and move this somewhere centered on the screen. That looks pretty centered right there. Alright, so we have the word continue. We'll press confirm for that, so we have continue there. I'm going to copy it and paste it. There's the copy and paste options right here. On the second one that I just made, I'll go to image, shadow, and I'll put a shadow on here just so I have a shadow version. Press OK. So I've just made, before was no shadow and after is with a shadow. So again, I have subimage 0 and subimage 1. 1 is the shadow version. Okay, so now I have that, and I'll have to convert that into an object as well. So make an object, call this continue. If you had a continue option in your game, pick the continue sprite, and we're going to say on creation, set sprite continue to subimage 0 because it's not selected, and image index or speed is 0 because we don't want this animation to keep playing and changing between shadow and non-shadow unless you want it to blink or something. Press OK. And so now we have this wing which gets created, but we also need to drop that into the room. So we go to the room, which is down here, room 6. Now we have a continue option, and so I'll drop continue right there with it. Looks like I got the color a little bit different than that one, but I can change that later if I wanted to. Press OK. So when you press down, it's going to check to see, is this the shadowed, is that the shadowed, or is that the shadowed? If this is the shadowed, then we're going to change the start one to 0. Actually, if you press down and this is selected, this one does need to turn to 1 because now that's going to be the one selected. Again, speed is 0. And options needs to turn to 0. And now we're going to say, if this is selected, we need to make sure there's one more change sprite in there because we added a continue. So we're going to say change. Actually, we don't need another one. We just need to modify the current one. Options. We need to change the options to continue. We're going to change the continue sprite to 0. Speed is 0. Alright, so what this is happening, The important thing also to remember is that we're changing the object continue. We're not changing the menu controller. So when we're changing the sprite, we're changing the object continue to continue with 0, whereas continue before was 1. So everything is going to be changing the object start to start with subimage 0. And sprite continue to continue with 0. And start goes to 1. Actually, in this case, when you press down, we don't want start to go to 1. We're going to want continue, it's not door, continue to go to 1. And we're going to want options to go to 0. So start, continue, and options down here. So it's going to keep re-grabbing the previous ones so it can look at everything. All right, so with all that set, it's pretty much going to be the exact same settings for up. So whereas before we're going up, now we're going to go down. But I'll leave that and see what happens. So we press play. Oops, and it doesn't know what continue is because we haven't set that yet. So you need to set on the menu controller if So actually it looks like the word continue is another code word. You can't use the word continue in a variable. It corresponds to something else. So we're going to change the name. We can call it anything else besides the word continue. So I can call it continue underscore if I want to. I can call it continue s. Look at continues with an s on there. That should fix the problem. So I need to rename everything with the word continue to put an s on there. Oops. That should have been renamed with That's got the word continues on there now. Continue. Cancel. Alright, let's close out that and try it again. Down event, continue. Well, we'll see what happens. Door, continue. That's really strange that it won't update that. Alright, we'll see what happens. So we press play. And so now we have the start menu is highlighted. When you press down, it should jump to options. But it looks like it's not quite working yet. So this one works. If it's 1, you press down. It should change the start to 0, which it does. And it should change continue to 0 also. We don't need the continue to change to 0. We actually want the options to change to 1. Alright, so that turns options on. So start goes to 0, turns off that, options goes on. If options is on, then we want to set start to 0. And we want to set, we don't want to set start, we want to set continues. Continues to 1. So we're going to turn that one on. And options gets turned off. So now if you press start on here, start, if you press continue, start turns on, and options, no, we want continues to turn off now. Continues to turn off. Alright, now let's play and see what happens. So now when I press down, it cycles through everything. So start, options, continue. And since I haven't coded the up, it's originally up was just between the two of these, because I never coded the up to have the down option. But if I press down, it cycles through all of these. So again, a bit of tweaking here, but the general idea is if start is on shadow mode, when you press the down key, then change start to non-shadow, which is 0, and change options to shadow. So now the down key just made that turn into shadow. Now it's going to say if it's on options with shadow, then change the continue to a shadow mode and turn options no longer on shadow, which is 0. And then again, one more time, the same thing. If you press down and it's already on shadowed version of continue, then start turns into shadow and continue loses its shadow. So now I'm going to select all of these, copy, and if you press up, paste all of that, oops, let's delete all of that first and then paste it again. So that should recopy because it's the exact same options are going to happen. And the last thing is for enter. So now we can actually start it. So if the start image index is equal to 1, which means it's shadowed, it's the select version, go to the next room. If the options image index is equal to 1, then go to, and we don't have an options window or options room, but it would take us to there. And so copy that and paste it one more time, move that back to there. And this is going to say if continues object is equal to 1, so that's the one that's in shadow, then go to another room that we don't have yet. We don't have a continue room, but it would pick between those if you press enter. So we press play again, and so the down cycles through everything, up cycles through everything. Actually, we need to reverse the up direction. And start, we'll start the game. If you walk over here, run into the door, it goes to the next level. We haven't coded this, but it'll tell us there's no more next room because we don't have any more rooms after this. But we need to switch the up. So since we're going upwards now, which is backwards, we need to switch all these things. So the start image index, if this is equal to 1 and you're pressing up, we need to set start to 0, which is correct, but go the other direction and set continues on both of these to 1. So now if continues is equal to 1 and you press up again, start won't matter, so we need to set options to 1 and continue should be turned off again. And again, one more time, if options is the one selected and you press up, continue won't matter, that needs to be start. And start is probably rather confusing, but that should do it now. So if I press down, it cycles down. If I press up, it cycles up. All right, and again, the color was just a little bit off when I did that one, but oh well. So we have the start options continue, and that should set everything correct. And we have the screen back here, so when you start the game, boom, it loads in the level. We have a fade transition. You can go through and play your game, and when you're all done, we should have an ending screen also, which is the same thing, just basically for the last door, when you go to the next door, just have an ending room that's an end at the end. If I want to do that real quick, I could just say, here's the end room. And I could put a big screen here saying ending if I wanted to. So press play. So start the game, press enter. Walk over here to the door. Walk over here to this door. So assuming it beat the game, it just popped into the where you drop the image that says you win. So you have your entry screen, exit screen, and your game in between. So that's how you would pretty much put a room together. You could also make a lot of the stuff, trees blowing in the wind, all the leaves. You could have birds flying and make it a lot more visually interactive instead of just one flat image. So that would be the better option to go. You could have blinking cursors if you want. You won't be able to use the image index sprite checks anymore. You'll have to rearrange the code to check variables, but more or less a similar process. So that should set you with doors and title screens. And I guess one last thing to mention, if you wanted to make doors that go back and forth, so we have all this set. Let's say we close out that, okay, and okay on the menu system, options. All right, So the door we want to have by default goes to the next room. So we want to make a door that goes backwards. So I'm going to right click and duplicate this one. This is going to be door 2. So it's going to go backwards. And this door 2 will go to, let's delete that one, main, and let's go to previous room. So whether you want an effect on there or not, just press no effect for now. So this will put them in the previous room. So we press OK, and let's grab room 7, and let's delete out that door and put in door 2. So this will put us back in the previous room. So I press play now. So start the game. We'll walk over to the door, takes us to the next room, and we jump over here, and it drops us back where we started. So it took us back to the previous room. The only difference is, let's say we wanted the character not to drop in right here. We wanted him to drop in right where he left the door so he can walk back over this direction. By default, whenever you re-enter a room, it's going to restart the room where the character was meant to be starting from, which is right there. So we need to reassign him. So over here is probably, I guess if we look at it, there's about, I guess if you look in the bottom left corner, you'll see the XY position coordinates. So right here is 544 by 256. If I jump back to room 1, we want him to appear right here. Let's say 576 by 288. Well, that's right here. 576, 224 is where we want the character to drop in at. So he starts right next to the door. So 576, 224. To fix that, we're going to say, and this is only if you want to make characters jump back and forth, you make the character persistent on the screen, so he's always going to be there. So persistent character, press OK. Go back to door 2, and door 2, when it says go to previous room, we want to make sure we move jump to position, and wherever this was again, I forgot the numbers. Let's press OK. This was 576, 224. We don't want a relative, we just want a world coordinates. So this will put us literally in that exact position, no relative about it, just jumps us that position. But self will move the door to that position. We want to move the object character left. We'll drop him in that position, and then we'll change rooms. We want to make sure the jump position is done first before the change of rooms. This way, if you change the room first, you won't actually jump. You need to jump them and then change the room. So we press play. Start the game. Walk over to here. He collides with the door. He walks to the door, and it drops him right where we left off at. Oops, wrong button. So we can shoot down the bats if we want. Alright, so again, walking through the door, and oops, this time it dropped him over here. Not exactly sure why that occurred. Let's press play again. So walk over here, he touches the door, he drops over right here. Oh, he's persistent. So we have to tell the door number 1. Persistent means he'll start in the exact same place he left off at. So boom, he starts right here. If he leaves right here, it's the same XY coordinates, so he's dropping off the screen right here. So we need to say on door number 1, go to next room, and we also have to jump him to a position we want him to go to. In this case, we'll start it at 200 by 200, and you don't need relative. So if you're going to use persistent, you have to take into account that every time you have to tell him exactly where he's going to pop into the room. So he jumps over here, touches there, he pops in here, touches it again, and we're telling him, oops, I should have told him to jump to that position. Jump to position 200, 200 when you go to door number 1. And then go to the next room. we got to jump the object. We got to jump the character. So not the door. We're jumping the character to that position. So now it should work. So we start the game. Goes over here, touches the door. The problem is here we have if he's persistent, you don't want him starting in the room to begin with. Boom. So he jumps back here, jumps here. Boom. But go back to room 1. So he'll start here, and then from here on, you don't want him appearing in any more rooms. So if you go to room 7, we don't want him here, so we want to delete him out of there. So he's persistent, so he doesn't need to drop into any more rooms. So press play. So he walks over to here, touches the door. So now he pops into here because we told him to appear in that position, and he appears over here. So as long as he's persistent, he can't, you only want to put him once in the room.